Right. So here's another thing that I'm curious about, and I'll give some background. So the way that I define worship is not so much as like a praise based thing, but worship
Mm-hmm.
for me is participation. And so what are we participating in? For me, it's an energetic participation of, if we're going to worship God, then we want to participate with the vibrational frequencies of our more divine self. Um,
Right.
so I hold an inner belief of men and women should
Mm-hmm.
worship differently.
Why do you say that? What is it about? Why do you think that?
So for me, um, because you and I have spoken about masculine and feminine energy, and at our cores, we're very different. Like you and I, just even on the surface, like you have a very masculine core, I have a very feminine core. And so in my healing journey of coming to coming back to myself, that feminine energy for me has been me learning how to tap into my emotions, become more intuitively connected to myself,
Mm-hmm.
become more nurturing, allow myself really comfortable environments to thrive in. And so I look back at, in particular, there was, so actually in the Bible, there's a story of Rachel, but
Mm-hmm.
then more recently, Anita Diamante wrote The Red Tent, and
Mm-hmm.
Hallmark or Lifetime or somebody made it into a mini series, which is how I found out about it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a scene in it where the men worship the God of the Old Testament, but the women meet in secret to worship the goddess. And
Mm-hmm.
so, whoever Rachel is married to, I don't know the name, he finds out and he breaks all of their relics, all of their statues representing the goddess. And
Mm-hmm.
so that struck me, and I circled back to it years later, where for me that inner belief is, if I am participating, think about growing in my spirituality as climbing a ladder where I've wanted to first get to know my own core essence of how do I grow in my femininity. And then as I gain a little bit of mastery and deeper familiarity and confidence in that, then I want to expand into my wholeness and hone my inner masculine energy as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that at different phases of the healing journey, it's been valuable for me to participate with the goddess,
Mm-hmm.
to worship the goddess and get to know her. Um, it's very difficult, I think, to me, it was difficult for me to not have a clear enough understanding of the energetic principles of masculine and feminine, and just
Mm-hmm.
try to be everything all at once. Um,
Right.
so that's what I'm going, that's what I'm getting at with a question like that.
Well,
And
I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can
oh
finish.
no, I was just I'm curious about your perspective on it.
Well, I think that I looked at when you sent me the email with the stuff to look at, and that was one of the things I kind of. And it's funny that you bring it up. I don't think you're wrong. I just think that, in my opinion, I think the statement for me is more in line with that everyone should worship differently.
Mm,
And I think that's what, when you think about the old teachings, that's what it's about. It's about your personal relationship with the divine, however your perspective is on that. That's why the church is so, to me, is controversial, because why do we need a church? Like, why do we need to go somewhere and have this intermediary between me and the divine being, which is also me. You know, like, why do I need to go to somebody that's like, I get the whole notion of having a place to worship and all of that thing, but the structure of the church and the dogma, it always bothered me because it seemed so one of the things that I remember learning very on that always bothered me was like they're trying that, like they tell us, in the Catholic tradition, with Jesus and everything, Jesus was very, you know, God was a personal experience for him. And one of the things he wanted people to know is you don't need anybody else to talk to God. Like you don't need anybody else or to worship. I understand why you want men and women to worship differently, I think, because you're in a place on your journey where you need that. You need to be not distracted and have people interfere with the energy that you're trying to get to. So you want to be around more feminine place where there's that energy, right? And I think for men, there's men that need to be around men. They need to stay away from women and figure out what it is that they're doing on their journey. So I don't necessarily disagree with you, like with your concept. I just think that when I'm looking at, or when I think of big picture, it's like, yeah, you want to have spots where you can go to worship the goddess and to get in touch with your feminine energy. And there should be a place for that. And the same thing with the men. I just think that in general, for me, the statement is that everyone should worship differently. You look to other people for wisdom and leadership, because I think part of what you said with worship is it's just another word for follower. And, as a follower, people think following is this bad thing. Like it's like, oh, you shouldn't follow this person, or you shouldn't follow that, you shouldn't be a follower. Well, there's too many the very, I guess, old racist term would be there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians right now. Everybody's got in their head right now that they're a leader, which in some cases they are, but they've forgotten that following is a really important thing to do. Especially as a society, you have to be able to know how to follow. Followers have responsibilities. It's not a bad thing. And as far as your worship goes, follow whoever you want to follow, but ultimately you're the one that has to decide how you're going to worship, what you're going to worship, what you're going to do with your life, like what your life's purpose is. It always comes down to you. So that's what I would say to that. But I understand what you're saying with that desire to be in a feminine space and you feel better. You don't have to worry about baloney, like male stuff, just the male scent hanging in the air. But you know what I mean?
I don't have to worry about the baloney.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about any baloney flying around. There's no baloney. So I get that desire. And because I honestly, when you were talking and explaining yourself, one of the things that popped into my head was that right now I prefer the goddess. I prefer the feminine energy because we live in a society it's a dominator culture, so it's a very masculine culture, and it has its good and bad to it. But right now I prefer the feminine energy because I'm so locked into the masculine and the patriarchal culture. It's a constant battle for me to try and see both sides. Mm-hmm. So I'm like right now in the past year with meditation, I've been very much more towards the feminine energy and the part of what we had talked about, like the heart chakra and focusing on things like that. Just because my environment provides me plenty of masculine energy, like I don't need any more.
Though, I so appreciate everything that you're saying, Vincent, because I gave you an idea in my feminine energy, and you provided for me boundaries and clarity and a sense of direction where I like to liken the experience of the feminine energy needing boundaries from the masculine as like, if you were to take a few ice cubes out of the tray in the freezer, you'd need to put them somewhere so that once they melted and came into their fullness as water,
Mhm.
be evaporated or like turn into a puddle and become so diffuse that it was no longer water. It would just be
Mhm.
absorbed into the ground. So you need to stick them in a bowl, and then that way it could be water. And so you provided a bowl, a container for me to not run into the ground. So thank
You
you.
know, it's you're welcome.